Hey everyone, ready to kind of flip the script on how we think about motivation?
I think we're all ready for that.
We're going deep on this one. Using Drive by Daniel Pink
Great book.
as our main source, but also bringing in some other cool stuff about flow states, goal setting, all that.
Sounds fascinating.
The big takeaway up front is, you know those classic rewards and punishments?
Yeah, the carrot and stick.
Sometimes they totally backfire.
You're not kidding.
So we're going to really break down what actually fuels us to do our best.
I'm excited to dig into this.
So one thing that really hooked me about Drive was it's not just theories, right?
Oh, absolutely not. Pink brings in so much research,
Real-world examples, too.
even economics, which I wouldn't have expected.
It all comes together to show how motivation really works.
Especially now, the world's changed so much.
Yeah, it's like he debunked the whole myth of just using carrots and sticks,
Right.
which most of us grew up with.
And speaking of, Pink talks about this Sawyer effect.
From Tom Sawyer, right?
Mark Twain, yep. Remember how Tom tricks his friends into whitewashing that fence?
Oh, yeah, by making it seem like a privilege.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Suddenly the chore is desirable.
Twain was so smart to get that principle down.
It's like if you reward something too much, it becomes work instead of play.
Totally.
But Pink doesn't just tell stories. He's got the studies to back this up.
Like what?
One where preschoolers were offered a reward for drawing, which they already loved doing.
Okay.
Turns out they became less interested once the reward was on the table.
I've heard about that one. It's wild.
It really makes you think, because we're always told rewards equal better performance.
Right. That's how it's supposed to work.
But Pink's like, nope, especially for creative tasks or deep thinking.
Makes sense.
There's even this study from India, he cites.
What was that one?
People were offered big rewards for doing tasks.
Okay, so motivated.
But they performed the worst. Like, the focus on the reward messed them up.
So does that mean no rewards ever?
Not quite. Pink says there are times they're useful, routine stuff. Think assembly lines, filling out forms.
Right, those kinds of jobs.
But even then, you gotta be careful how you use them.
He has some tips, I think.
Yeah, like, explain why the reward exists, acknowledge the works may be boring,
Oh, that's smart.
and give some freedom in how the task gets done.
So it's not demotivating.
Right, rewards shouldn't make things worse.
Makes total sense.
Hmm.
But what about, like, artists, writers, that kind of work?
Yeah, with creative stuff, it's a whole different ballgame.
Totally.
Pink says rewards can work, but only if they're enabling, not controlling.
I'm not sure I follow that.
Think of it like, imagine a writer gets a commission to try a new genre.
Oh, that's cool.
It could spark their creativity because it's an opportunity, not an order.
I see. It's more about opening doors.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
got to tap into that internal drive, not feel like an obligation.
I'm getting all kinds of ideas just thinking about this.
Me too. And it gets even deeper. Pink brings up this self-determination theory.
Ooh, yeah, by Deci and Ryan, right.
You know it. It's completely changed how we see motivation.
What's the gist?
We all have three basic needs: competence, autonomy, relatedness.
I definitely felt those before.
When they're met, we're motivated, productive, happy.
Makes sense. So when they're not met.
The opposite: lack of motivation, low productivity, less happiness.
It's kind of obvious when you say it like that.
Right, but we don't always realize it. Pink even talks about this study where they messed with people's flow for just 2 days.
What, like that state where you're totally in the zone?
Yeah, and the results were crazy. People started showing symptoms like a psychiatric disorder
No way, seriously.
just from being deprived of flow.
That's scary.
Makes you realize how essential flow, engagement, mastery really are.
It's not just a buzzword. It's like for our well-being.
Totally. So then Pink introduces these two motivational styles, type I and type X.
I and X, like Roman numerals.
Yep. Type I is all about those internal rewards, seeking mastery, loving autonomy.
And type X is more like chasing external stuff.
Right, like rewards and short-term gains. But anyone can shift more towards type I, he says.
Oh, good to know.
It's not about rejecting money or anything. It's about finding work that matters to you once those basic needs are covered.
So you're not doomed to be one type forever.
Exactly. Pink even compares type I behavior to a renewable resource, like solar power versus burning coal.
That's a great analogy. So how do we become more type I then?
Well, Pink breaks down autonomy into these 4 T's: task, time, technique, team.
Ooh, the 4 T's. I like that.
Giving people autonomy in those areas unleashes type I behavior, he says.
Can you give an example?
Oh, yeah, like Atlassian, the software company.
I've heard of them.
They do these FedEx days.
What's that?
Engineers get 24 hours to work on any problem they want.
Whoa, as long as it's not their usual job.
Exactly. It's all about sparking creativity, seeing what emerges.
That's so cool. Do they have to come up with something by the end?
Yeah, they have to deliver,
Yeah.
hence the FedEx name.
I bet they come up with some awesome stuff.
They totally do. It's a prime example of how autonomy leads to innovation.
And Pink contrasts that with, like, billing by the hour,
Yes. He's like, that model is so detrimental to autonomy.
because you're focused on time, not results.
Exactly. It can even lead to bad behavior. He gives some examples from the legal field.
Yikes.
It's crazy how something seemingly small, like how we track work, has such a big impact.
It really shows how we need to change our thinking. He talks about ROWE, right?
Results only work environment. Pretty radical, but maybe that's what we need.
I'm intrigued. We should look into that more. But before we go there, what about mastery?
Yeah, that's another key part of Pink's Motivation 3.0. It's that desire to get better at something meaningful.
Makes sense. We all want to feel like we're growing.
Pink talks about West Point cadets to illustrate this.
Oh, yeah. What about them?
The ones who thrived weren't the smartest or strongest, but those who found meaning in even the basic tasks.
So it's not just about raw talent.
Nope, mindset matters too. They saw everything as a chance to learn.
I like that.
Pink also talks about the mastery asymptote, the idea that you never truly reach complete mastery.
So there's always room for improvement.
Always. Which is kind of frustrating, but also inspiring.
That's a good way to look at it.
Hmm?
And now we get to the heart of it all. Purpose.
That sense that your work is connected to something bigger.
Right. Like it has meaning beyond just yourself.
And Pink shares some research on profit and happiness.
I'm curious about that. What did they find? Well, it turns out aiming just for profit didn't really make people happier.
Really?
And sometimes even made them less happy.
That's kind of mind-blowing. We think money equals happiness, right?
It makes you stop and think, that's for sure. What's really important.
So where does purpose fit into all this?
Pink's big on figuring out your sentence.
Your sentence.
Yeah, like that one statement that sums up your life's work, what it's all about.
Whoa, that's deep.
It is. But he's not saying it has to be some grand, far-off thing.
Oh, good.
It's more about small, consistent actions that build up over time.
I can get behind that.
He suggests asking yourself, was I better today than yesterday?
At the end of each day.
Yeah. Simple but powerful. It's about making progress, even in little ways.
Towards something that matters to you.
Exactly. Aligning your actions with your purpose. And this is cool. He says, type I behavior isn't just for individuals.
What, like whole companies can be type I?
He thinks so. He's like that old school command and control management that's stuck in Motivation 2.0.
The carrot and stick we were talking about.
Right, it just doesn't work anymore, especially for the work we're doing now.
Because it kills creativity, right?
And innovation and that natural drive to do awesome stuff.
It's like we're holding ourselves back.
Pink says we need Motivation 3.0, where companies focus on autonomy, mastery, purpose.
And there are companies already doing this.
Yeah, he points to Atlassian, 3M, Google as kind of the pioneers.
Oh yeah, Google's famous for their 20% time thing.
Where they can work on their own projects.
For a fifth of their time. It's crazy.
Pink says that's led to some of their biggest hits, like Gmail.
I did not know that. Makes you wonder why more companies aren't doing this.
It's a slow change, but it's happening. Pink says we got to stop just managing people and start leading them.
That's a good distinction.
It means creating places where people feel empowered, you know?
To own their work, master their skills, be part of something bigger.
Yes. So how do we actually do this? It all sounds great, but where do we start?
That's the big question.
Well, Pink gives us a sort of toolkit full of tips and strategies.
Wait, so this isn't just for CEOs and managers?
Not at all. It's for anyone who wants to understand motivation, create better environments.
For ourselves or the people we work with?
Exactly, whether it's work, school, even at home.
I love that. It's like applicable everywhere.
So for individuals, one of the first things is figure out your motivational type.
Type I or X, you mean?
Yeah. Once you know yourself better, you can make choices that fit.
So if you're more type I, look for work with autonomy, challenges, purpose.
You got it. Maybe even talk to your boss about changing your role.
And if you're more type X,
try connecting your work to a bigger picture. Find opportunities for mastery within what you're already doing.
so it's about taking action, making your work more meaningful.
And get this. Pink says we can actually rewire our brains to be more type I over time.
What, like literally change our brains?
He says practicing gratitude, focusing on those internal rewards, that helps.
It's about changing our perspective, making choices that support our natural drive.
To learn, create, contribute, all those good things.
So for organizations, what can leaders do to encourage type I behavior?
The biggest one is give people more autonomy. It sounds simple, but it's huge.
Like how?
Flexible schedules, letting them choose projects, giving them decision-making power.
So less micromanaging, more trust.
Exactly. Trust that your team will do their best work when they feel empowered.
And Pink's big on mastery too, right?
Sure. Offer training programs, set up mentorships, encourage people to take on challenges.
Basically, support their growth and development.
Yep. And lastly, leaders need to be super clear about purpose,
Yeah.
that overall vision.
And how each person's work fits into that.
Yes, when people feel connected to a purpose, they're more engaged, motivated, fulfilled.
This is all so insightful, but one question popped into my head. Pink talks about those if-then rewards being bad, especially for creative work.
Right, those classic do this, get that deals.
But in the real world, people still need to get paid.
You're telling me.
Yes.
It's how we survive.
So how do we balance that need for money with Motivation 3.0?
Pink knows money matters, but he's like, it shouldn't be the main motivator.
So it's not about getting rid of paychecks.
No, it's about providing fair compensation, what he calls baseline rewards.
So money isn't a constant source of stress.
Exactly. Like Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
But once you got the basics covered, you can focus on higher things.
Exactly. Then you can create that work environment that fosters autonomy, mastery, purpose.
So shift the focus from external rewards to internal ones.
Yes. And he gives some examples of companies trying this out.
Like what?
Some are doing ROEs, those result-only work environments,
Oh yeah, we touched on that earlier.
where pay is based on what you achieve, not hours worked.
Still sounds pretty radical.
It is. Might not work for everyone, but it's an example of how we can rethink work and rewards.
To match how motivation really works.
That's the key.
Yeah.
Pink's making us question if our current systems are even designed to get the best out of people.
It's a good question to ask. This whole deep dive has been amazing.
It's been fun talking about this stuff with you.
We've gone from the science to real-world examples, even what the future could look like.
It really makes you rethink everything.
I hope everyone listening is feeling inspired to change how they approach motivation.
In their own life, their work, everything.
Because we're not just reward-seeking robots, right?
Totally. We have this drive to learn, create, make a difference.
So if the old way of thinking about motivation is broken, what are you going to do about it?
That's the question we should all be asking ourselves.
We highly recommend checking out Drive and all those other resources we mentioned.
There's so much to learn.
Yeah, there's so much more to unpack here. Like, we've talked a lot about work, but what about the rest of life?
You mean like how Motivation 3.0 applies to things outside the job?
Exactly, like parenting, relationships. Pink gets into that too, right?
Oh, totally. He wants us to build those environments that nurture our drives everywhere, not just at the office.
I'm especially curious about the parenting part,
Yeah, me too.
because he seems pretty skeptical of those classic reward and punishment systems.
He is. He's like, we rely too much on those if-then deals to control kids.
Instead of encouraging their own motivation.
Right, that intrinsic stuff. And it can actually backfire.
So we end up with kids who are less motivated.
It's possible. Like in work, too much external pressure can kill that natural curiosity, creativity.
They just want to do things for the reward, not for the joy of it.
Exactly. So the question is, how do we raise kids who are driven from within?
That's the million-dollar question, right? What's the alternative?
Pink's got a bunch of ideas, but a big one is giving kids more autonomy.
Not, like, letting them run wild.
No, but giving them choices, letting them make decisions when they can.
So they feel ownership over their lives.
Right. And another key thing is providing opportunities for mastery,
Like what kinds of things?
encouraging their passions, helping them set goals, giving them space to experiment, mess up, and learn.
It's that growth mindset again.
Totally. And lastly, connecting them to a sense of purpose.
How do you do that with kids?
Talk about values, expose them to different views, get them involved in causes they care about.
It's like helping them see they can have a positive impact.
Exactly. And guess what? This all applies to adult relationships too.
Oh, interesting. In what way?
Think about it. Good relationships are built on trust, respect, shared purpose.
Makes sense.
When we try to control each other, it undermines all that.
It's like we're back in that Motivation 2.0 mode, trying to manipulate people.
You got it. That's not going to lead to healthy, fulfilling relationships.
So we need Motivation 3.0 in our love lives, too.
Exactly. Focus on supporting each other's autonomy, growth, individual goals.
It's like create a space where both people can be themselves, pursue their passions.
and contribute to something bigger together. It's not always easy. It takes effort.
But I bet it's worth it.
Oh, totally. You get deeper connections, more fulfillment, that shared purpose.
Wow, this whole deep dive has been incredible. We've covered so much.
It's been a blast talking about this with you.
From the science to real-world examples, even what the future could hold.
I feel like I'm seeing motivation in a whole new light.
I hope everyone listening feels the same way. Maybe even inspired to make some changes.
In their own lives, at work,
Well,
everywhere.
we're not just robots chasing carrots, right?
Absolutely not. We have this deep down desire to learn, create, make a difference.
And understanding that changes everything.
It really does. So, to everyone out there, if the old way of thinking about motivation is broken,
What are you going to do about it?
that's the question to take away from this deep dive.
Check out Drive by Daniel Pink, all the other resources we talked about.
Keep learning, keep exploring.
And join us next time for another deep dive into something awesome. Until then, take care.